Hi friends, back again for more on the topic of giftedness. This time we're going to get into communication. Now, of course, communication with your kiddos is much broader than just under the giftedness category, but well, you'll see why I want to highlight it here in this series. So it'll be in both playlists, the gifted and the general parenting. But I begin with this quote from Dr. Webb in his book, A Parent's Guide to Gifted Children, wherein he says, communication with your child is literally a lifeline for her. If a child has even one adult with whom she can communicate freely and who accepts and values her, she can withstand a fair amount of frustration from the larger outside world. And I do love that concept of the home being the safe place where we can kind of rest, restore, get our communication and attachment needs met, and then from that secure base, go out into the world and manage, the exciting parts and also the frustrating parts of the world from that place of a safe base. So with regard to communication, see if I can advance this slide here. Okay, so I really like this phrasing of a lifeline. And I want to begin with the idea that feelings just are. So there isn't a good or a bad. There is no value. It just is. And then feelings are personal. So it's our own experiencing of our feelings, and those are valid. So, for those of us who have an avoidant or dismissing attachment style, we may have a tendency to kind of let somebody else know that their feelings are not valid. So I want to encourage you, if you're parenting a gifted kiddo, to recognize that the feelings are personal. They are valid based on how they're experiencing it. Now, of course, you want to get into communication and help make sure their mindset around their feelings is a healthy mindset, but beginning from a place of feelings just are, they're not good or bad, and that feelings are personal and individual. And then this third bullet is feelings cannot be controlled, but behavior can. And I like the idea of engaging the parent and the kiddo in shared control. Like we're going to kind of coach you into ways that you can manage your behavior, that you can accept and deal with your feelings and therefore manage your behavior instead of the parent being responsible for managing the behavior, and especially the parent being responsible for managing the behavior through the pathway of controlling feelings. It's just not going to help evolve the sort of emotional maturity that you're hoping to evolve with your kiddo. And then on this fourth point here, intense children need help learning how to manage their intense feelings. So I refer back to with gifted kiddos, I kind of refer back to sort of a coaching model. A lot of your responsibility with kiddos and their overexcitabilities and all of those characteristics that we've been going through, that's a difficult pathway, and it needs coaching that has respect for the intensity that those experiences are, if that makes sense. So I have this name it, claim it, manage it. That comes from Dan Siegel, Name It to Tame It. So if you can name it, you're engaging your prefrontal cortex, which is already going to get you out of your amygdala. You could claim it. That is mine. That's how I feel. And then I can look to manage it. So we're working on managing that intensity, coaching the kiddos through so they can learn how to deal with that intensity that's going to be with them for the rest of their life. So I will pause there and catch my breath. Okay, so some communication techniques to try. So I recognize that not every family has their communication strategies figured out. And I will say the best place to start from is to have a culture of communication in the family. So in the household, is your family about communication? Are we open to it? Do we discuss things? So if you don't already have kind of culturally in your home a focus on, we communicate with one another, we share things with one another. If you don't have that, that's the place to start. So, with regard to improving communication in your parent-child dynamic, the first thing is making a focus on listening. So, communication is about hearing. The very best thing that you can do to improve your communication is to be a listener. And then accepting the feelings, even if you disagree. So feelings are so temporary, and I had a supervisor say to me once, like, the first response is not the final response. So sometimes we get really activated when we hear the feelings coming from our kiddos, and I just want to encourage you, even if you disagree with it, even if it's not nice feelings, even if you don't agree with their assessment of what they're feeling, etc., just accept it. You can work on correcting it later, but first we want to be a good listener and accept the experience that the kiddo is having. Like I said, an atmosphere that promotes communication. And then this fourth bullet, is it 1, 2, 3? Fourth bullet here is understand silence. Silence, a lot of us are uncomfortable with silence, but there's real purpose behind silence, especially with this population. So it is not at all unusual for gifted kiddos to be like processing something kind of for a while inside their own head. I mean, not all of them, but sometimes they're just, you might ask a question or you might check in, how are you feeling about something? And it's silent. That could just be processing. That could be internal regulation. That could be trying to access the right word. Some of these kiddos are quite pedantic, meaning they want like the specific and accurate word. The silence in those moments, that's a time to just be and attend. And, if your kiddo is doing internal work, that's a good thing. So we want to understand what the silence is. After the fact, and you want to like debrief a situation, you can always ask your kiddo, hey, the other day when you were dysregulated or we got into that argument or whatever, I noticed that you were quiet for a while. Can you tell me a little bit about what was going on inside your head? Like, those are great conversations, not in the moment when somebody's trying to process something, but after the fact when you're doing a little retrospective or debriefing, you can always ask, what was going on for you in those moments? Okay, reflective listening. Now, a lot of people kind of make fun of the idea of sort of like feeding back to the person who's communicating with you their words. I think it's because we introduce extra words when we're trying to implement this strategy. So when I say a reflective listening, I'm not saying, I would not say to a kiddo, what I hear you saying is XYZ. Actually, I'm a mirror. So they say, I wish I could demo it with you, but I don't have an effective way to demo it. Someday when I get into interviews and things like that, and I'm a little more mature as a YouTuber, I'll be able to do this kind of thing with somebody who will role play this with me. But you can imagine, like, just be a mirror. So a kiddo says, I'm really mad right now. I'm so mad at you. You just are a mirror. You're mad at me. Not, I hear you saying you're mad at me. That's a different technique. I think it comes from maybe imago therapy. I don't know, but it's a pretty quick way to irritate people. So I tend to not lean into it. I actually want to reflect what they're saying so they can hear it. What is the point? They can hear their words coming back and they can start to work with it. Oh, I'm really mad at you right now. You're really mad at me right now. You're just nodding your head right now. I'm just nodding my head right now. Just reflect. If they're not verbally saying things, you can also reflect what you see. I see your face is scrunched up. You look like you're feeling something very intense inside of you. Like, so you're still being a mirror. I could see your hands kind of balled up in a fist. So you can observe, I see that you want to turn away from me right now. Sometimes they will say things that are really hard for parents to hear, like, I really hate you. I want to encourage you. It's hard. It's hard, which is that last bullet is monitor your own intense feelings. Intense kids often come from intense parents. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm saying it's worth it. If they say something that harsh, you just reflect that. You hate me. It's so healthy for them to hear it reflected back. If you can get yourself regulated enough to do it, the payoff when they hear their words back, it feels respectful to them, and it also makes them think. So I want to challenge you on that. If you disagree, put the comments, respectfully in the down below, and we could talk about it more. And I'm happy to engage the debate. Okay, emotional temperature reading. I like this technique for some of our kiddos. They don't want to talk about their stuff. That's fine. So this I use for kiddos who don't want to talk to their parents about how they're feeling. This is implementing a strategy in your family that says, like at the end of the day when you're saying goodnight or whatever, you can say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how was your day? And let's say, 10 was a great day and 1 was a crappy day. Or you probably wouldn't say crappy with a young kiddo, but like a terrible day is a 1 and a great day is a 10. And so, you've got kind of a kiddo who doesn't really like to process their stuff, and that's fine. You could say things like, I know you don't necessarily want to talk to me about, the ins and outs of your day. I just want to be able to get a little temperature reading about how your day was. So even if you don't want to talk to me about it, how about we have this strategy where you just check in and let me know how was your day, and just on a scale of 1 to 10. So this is sort of, you lay it in as a plan and then you work it out over time. So, you're going along and you're doing your emotional check-in, let's say you do it every day after school on the ride home. How was your day? Oh, it was a 6. How was your day? It was a 10. How was your day? It was a 9. How was your day? And then you'll get the 1 or 3. And then you just go, okay, so you had a 3, right? The same behavior you would have if they had a 10. If they want to talk, they want to talk, and otherwise you're just respecting that they don't. Here's how it actually plays out. So you get the emotional temperature reading as part of your culture in your car or at bedtime or at the dinner table, whatever your routine is. And then you just get used to kind of doing those quick check-ins, and you're going along with all your 6s and 7s and 8s or mixes. And part of my day was a 10 and part of my day was a 4. Okay, right? Then a lot of times a kiddo will have a bad day and they'll say it was a 2. And then you go, oh, okay, it was a 2. You just reflect. That was a 2. You had a 2. Depending on how you are, you can say something more empathetic, like, oh, it's probably pretty rough. But not query, not like, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. Quite naturally, kids will say, wait, don't you want to know why? And that's golden, right? If you get that kind of a thing from your kiddo, don't you want to know why? I do want to know why. If you want to share with me, I would love to hear why your day was a 2, right? So now we're engaging in the relationship, and it's respectful and it's caring and it's loving and thoughtful. And I love emotional temperature reading specifically for kiddos who don't want to talk or don't know how to talk about their feelings. Okay, then this next bullet it's in quotes and it says, do you want my comments on this or do you want me to listen? So listen to that line again and see if you can pick out the word that's omitted. I'm going to give it to you afterwards, but see if you know what word I pulled out of there. Do you want my comments on this or do you want me to listen? The word I pulled out is just. So a lot of times people will say this, do you just want me to listen? And I will argue that there's no just in that. Listening is profound. It is such a gift that we give to our kiddos. So, do you want my comments on this? Sometimes they do want your comments. So let's go back to that. Let's say we did emotional temperature reading. Kiddo says it was a 2 of a day. And you're like, oh, it was a 2. That must have been a rough day. And then they go, don't you want to know what happened? And then you say, yes, I do want to know what happens if you feel comfortable telling me about it. And then they tell you the story about the fight they had with their friend and the ball and how they didn't get picked. And how they were mad then at lunch, and right, they tell you the whole story, and then you can say, do you want me to comment on that, or do you want me to listen? And then it's the kiddo's choice. I only want you to listen is a perfectly fine response. Or, yeah, I would like your comments on that. You could say, whatever kind of encouraging parenting thing you would want to say to your kiddos had a hard day. And then the next bullet says, share your feelings at other times and not on their time. So, it's kind of in this idea of like, you don't always want to be lecturing your kiddo about the right way to behave, or what you think their feelings mean. You also want, a lot of times as parents, we want to share our feelings about that. Like, oh, I'm frustrated for you, or I also got upset about that, or when I was a kid, I had a similar circumstance. All of those things are so great for your kiddo to hear. But I want to encourage you to not do it in the middle of like a crunch. Do it after the fact, like in a retrospective. Like, hey, the other day we got through that crunch and you were having a hard time, and then we talked about it. I was thinking after the fact about this other, thing, and I want to share my thought about that, or I want to tell you my story about that, or whatever. You do want to share, just not in the middle of the crunch, because again, that can come across as dismissing. Let me tell you about the time that I got my feelings hurt when I got left out of the XYZ game. Can feel dismissive. And I'm certain that when parents are going to share that, they're trying to connect, not dismiss. Another thought is to teach interpersonal skills, and role play is a really good way to do that. It gets sort of muscle memory around the languaging of things. So, if you are parenting from from a skill set base instead of like some of the other ways we go about our parenting, recognizing that your kiddo may not know how to have the communication, right? They don't know how to ask. Here's an example. They may not know how to ask inquiring, like, questions of somebody they might want to be friends with. Let's say they have somebody that they like, that they want to be friends with at school, and they want to play, and they don't know how to like engage. A lot of parents will say, well, why don't you like tell them that you, this is like a young kiddo, why don't you tell them that you like their shirt? Or why don't you ask them, what they do after school? Ask them, if they play an instrument, like whatever the questions that we might ask to kind of engage a potential playmate or friend. Our kids don't necessarily have those skills, so we can role play that and just make it about a skill. You don't have the skill yet, so let me help you learn that skill. Instead of, why can't you? Why don't you? It's just this. You're not on the side. You're not on the team with your friend, with your kiddo. If you're doing that, you want to be on their team, trying to help them, kind of coach them into the interpersonal skills that they might need. And role play is a really nice way to do that. Another communication technique that you can try, again, these are just suggestions, like try a few and see which ones fit. I'm pretty like mushy in my parenting style, so that's fine if you're not. Okay, so this next one is about holding up both ends of the conversation. So especially if it's a delicate conversation, and really anything can be delicate with intense kiddos. So the idea behind holding up both ends of the conversation is, like, again, if you've got somebody who's reluctant or like has trouble accessing their feelings, you could just do both sides of it. And I would say like maybe do it in a car. So you're driving and you're, side by side instead of like direct one-on-one, which it's really intimate to have eyeball to eyeball communication, right? But in a car and you're kind of like facing the same direction, it's not as intense for kiddos. So for a delicate conversation, it might go like, so parent says like, I was thinking about the other day when you got upset about, the girl that you're crushing on, and you feel like she don't want to like return, your note, and you really wanted to ask her out and stuff, and I was thinking maybe you could say something like um, da 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 da. So you would suggest the thing that the kiddo could say, and then you might say, and then they might say XYZ back, and then you could say, and if they said that, then I would say this, and then if you said this and they said that, right? So you just kind of paint out the way that a conversation could go. I don't know if that's making sense. Again, this would be a lot easier if I could demo it for you. If anybody wants to be like my little on-screen role play partner, let me know. I'll recruit for that. Okay, and then this final point is just that managing your own intense feelings. So if you don't already know about regulation, self-regulation, co-regulation, watch my video on regulation. When we've got intensity going on, we need regulation. And kiddos who are in stress and you're trying to get communication going, if you land in their place of stress, you're not going to be able to co-regulate them. So think back to like a little baby that you scoop up out of the crib. You don't, when they're crying, you don't pick them up and then talk with like a lot of intensity. You're trying to calm them down, right? So you want to use your own calm physiology to help regulate your kiddo. So that's that last bullet. Monitor your own intense feelings. If you are an intense parent and you've got an intense kiddo, you want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do. Like you can even say out loud, I need to just take a deep breath here and calm myself down because I'm feeling pretty intense. And then take that moment and let them watch you regulate. I mean, that's a perfectly acceptable thing to do for them to see like that you're a whole human being who has intensity. Then they can learn by, okay, well, my parent needs to calm themselves down. Maybe that's what I need to do as well. So monitor your own intense feelings and give these communication techniques a try and let me know in the comments below if any of them are working. And then this is just some sort of questions to think about or to discuss with your partner. I actually pulled this from a class that I taught for discussion topics in the table groups. But we don't have that here. You just have my little lecture. So some things for you to think about. Number one, what is your child's temperament and how does that impact communication? So this is just respectful parenting. Everybody has their unique temperament and it will have an impact on the way they communicate, and it also will have an impact on the way that the two of you communicate with one another. What kinds of techniques are you using with your kiddo and how's that working for you? Which of the communication techniques on the last slide or other ideas that you've had would you want to try? And then just a final reflection, like these seem like in theory easy to do, but really where the rubber meets the road is when everybody's feeling intense and pressured. And also you have different kiddos with different communication styles and different communication needs. So if you have that scenario in your household, what do your different kiddos need from communication? If you have different parents in the household, what do the different parental styles around communication need? So it's fine. It's just knowing so that you can communicate, because communication is a lifeline. So it's worth it to figure it out. And that's all I have for you on this one. I'll see you on the next one, you guys.